At exactly 8:15 in the morning, 3-year-old Shinichi Tetsutani was riding his bright red tricycle outside his home in Hiroshima, laughing as the morning sun painted the city in golden hues. His mother watched from their doorway, unaware that in less than 60 seconds, their world would be transformed by a light brighter than 1,000 suns. Above the clouds, the crew of a B-29 bomber called Enola Gay was preparing to release the most devastating weapon humanity had ever created. What happened next would end the bloodiest war in human history and forever change the relationship between nations, power, and the very survival of our species. This is the story of the day America split the atom and split the world in two. The summer of 1945 found the world exhausted by 6 years of unprecedented destruction. In the Pacific, American forces had been island hopping toward Japan for nearly 4 years, each battle more brutal than the last. The recent conquest of Okinawa had cost over 12,000 American lives and revealed the terrifying determination of Japanese defenders who would rather die than surrender. Military planners estimated that a full invasion of the Japanese mainland would require over 1 million Allied casualties and potentially destroy an entire generation of young men on both sides. But in the desert of New Mexico, a secret project had been consuming $2 billion and the efforts of 130,000 people. The Manhattan Project, born from Einstein's warning that Nazi Germany might develop atomic weapons, had become the largest scientific undertaking in human history. At its heart was a gentle physicist named Robert Oppenheimer, who would later say he had become death, destroyer of worlds. President Harry Truman, thrust into office after Roosevelt's sudden death, faced an impossible decision. The weapon was ready, the target had been chosen, but the weight of unleashing atomic fire upon a civilian population pressed heavily on his conscience. His advisors were divided. Some urged a demonstration on an uninhabited island. Others insisted that only the shock of total destruction would force Japan's surrender. Military leaders promised that this terrible weapon could save hundreds of thousands of lives by avoiding a costly invasion. Meanwhile, in Hiroshima, life continued with the rhythm of wartime normalcy. The city of 300,000 souls served as a military headquarters and industrial center, but it was also home to families, children, dreams, and hopes for peace. Streetcars carried workers to factories where they manufactured supplies for a war effort that was clearly failing. Children attended school and played in streets that had been largely spared from the devastating bombing campaigns that had reduced other Japanese cities to ash. The morning of the 6th was unusually clear. Weather reconnaissance planes had reported perfect visibility over the primary target. At 2:45 in the morning, Colonel Paul Tibbets guided the Enola Gay into the sky from Tinian Island, carrying a uranium bomb nicknamed Little Boy. The weapon, containing 64 kilograms of uranium-235, was designed with brutal simplicity. When detonated, it would release the energy equivalent of 15,000 tons of TNT in a fraction of a second. As the bomber approached Japanese airspace, radar operators detected the aircraft, but classified it as a minor threat. Single planes had been conducting reconnaissance missions for weeks. Air raid sirens that had wailed earlier fell silent. People emerged from shelters and resumed their morning routines. Children walked to school. Office workers hurried through busy intersections. Mothers prepared breakfast for their families. At 31,000 feet above Hiroshima, Bombardier Thomas Farabee peered through his bomb sight at the T-shaped Aioi Bridge, chosen as the aiming point for its distinctive shape in the heart of the city. At exactly 8:15 and 17 seconds, Little Boy fell away from the Enola Gay and began its 44-second descent toward the unsuspecting city below. The bomb detonated approximately 600 meters above the Shima Hospital, creating temperatures exceeding those found at the surface of the sun. In that first microsecond, matter was converted directly into energy with an efficiency that would have amazed Einstein himself. The fireball expanded to over 200 meters in diameter, vaporizing everything within its immediate radius. The intense heat flash, lasting only seconds, burned shadows of human beings into concrete walls and steps throughout the city. Akiko Takakura, a 19-year-old bank employee, was sitting at her desk 300 meters from the hypocenter when the world turned white. The heat wave seared her face and arms, but the concrete building protected her from the worst effects. When she regained consciousness, she found herself trapped in darkness, calling for her mother in a voice that seemed to come from someone else. She would later discover that her face had been so severely burned that her own mother didn't recognize her. The blast wave, traveling faster than the speed of sound, leveled buildings for miles in every direction. Wooden structures burst into flames instantly. Concrete buildings crumbled like sandcastles. The iconic Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, later known as the Atomic Bomb Dome, somehow remained partially standing, its skeletal frame becoming an eternal monument to that terrible morning. Dr. Michihiko Hachiya was at his home 2,500 meters from the explosion when the flash illuminated his room like lightning. The blast threw him across the room, embedding glass fragments in his body. Despite his injuries, he made his way to the communications hospital where he served as director, finding the building damaged but still functional. For weeks afterward, he would treat victims whose injuries defied medical understanding, watching helplessly as people who seemed to be recovering suddenly developed mysterious symptoms and died. Throughout the city, survivors emerged from the wreckage into a landscape that resembled the surface of an alien planet. The familiar streets and landmarks had vanished. Fires burned everywhere, fed by the wooden buildings that comprised most of Japanese urban architecture. The injured wandered through the smoke and debris, many so severely burned that their gender and age were impossible to determine. Some walked with their arms outstretched, their skin hanging from their bodies like melted wax. Hiroko Nakamoto, a 13-year-old girl, had been walking to school when the bomb exploded. The heat flash burned patterns from her dark clothing into her skin, creating a permanent record of what she had been wearing at the moment the world changed. She stumbled through the burning city for hours, searching for her family, stepping over bodies that blocked every street and alley. Years later, she would remember most clearly the absolute silence that followed the blast, broken only by the crackling of fires and the soft moaning of the dying. By noon, a black rain began falling over the city, carrying radioactive particles from the mushroom cloud that had risen 8 miles into the sky. Survivors, desperate with thirst, opened their mouths to catch the drops, unknowingly ingesting poison that would claim their lives days or weeks later. The radiation, invisible and odorless, began its silent work on the cellular level, destroying bone marrow and breaking down the body's ability to fight infection. In the immediate aftermath, communications with Hiroshima were completely severed. Tokyo knew something had happened, but not the scale of the destruction. When the first reconnaissance planes flew over the city hours later, pilots reported that Hiroshima had simply disappeared, replaced by a desert of smoking rubble. Military leaders struggled to comprehend reports that a single bomb had accomplished what required hundreds of aircraft in previous raids. President Truman, aboard the cruiser Augusta in the Atlantic, received word that the mission had been successful. He announced to the crew that America had harnessed the basic power of the universe and warned Japan that if they did not accept surrender terms, they could expect a rain of ruin from the air the like of which had never been seen on Earth. The ultimatum was clear: surrender or face total destruction. But Japan's military leadership, isolated in their belief that surrender meant national extinction, chose to remain silent. Emperor Hirohito, trapped between ancient traditions of honor and the crushing reality of his nation's situation, struggled with a decision that would determine the fate of millions. In the destroyed cities and devastated countryside, Japanese civilians endured American bombing raids with stoic determination, believing their sacrifice served a sacred duty to their emperor and ancestors. 3 days after Hiroshima, as medical teams struggled to understand and treat radiation sickness, another B-29 called Boxcar lifted off from Tinian Island carrying a plutonium bomb nicknamed Fat Man. The primary target was Kokura, but thick cloud cover forced the crew to divert to their secondary objective, the port city of Nagasaki. Major Charles Sweeney, piloting Boxcar, circled over Nagasaki as his bombardier searched for a break in the clouds. Fuel was running low, and Japanese fighter planes were scrambling to intercept them. At the last possible moment, A gap appeared in the cloud cover, revealing the industrial valley below. At 11:02 in the morning, Fat Man exploded with the force of 21,000 tons of TNT. The geography of Nagasaki, nestled between hills and valleys, contained much of the blast's destruction to specific areas, but for those caught in the weapon's path, the experience was no less horrific than Hiroshima. Sumiteru Taniguchi, a 16-year-old postal worker, was delivering mail when the flash burned away the skin on his back and arms. He would spend the next 20 months lying face down in a hospital bed while his body slowly healed, leaving him with scars that would mark him for life as a survivor of atomic warfare. By evening on the 9th, as reports of Nagasaki's destruction reached Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito made the decision that would end the war. In a radio broadcast that many Japanese heard with shock and disbelief, he announced Japan's surrender, citing the enemy's use of a new and most cruel bomb that threatened the complete extinction of human civilization. The war that had consumed the Pacific for nearly 4 years was finally over. The immediate death toll from both cities exceeded 200,000 people, but the true cost would only become clear in the years that followed. Survivors, known as hibakusha, faced not only the physical effects of radiation exposure, but social discrimination from their fellow citizens. Many suffered from leukemia, cancer, and other radiation-related illnesses that appeared years or even decades later. Children born to survivors sometimes carried genetic damage that manifested in birth defects and developmental problems. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, an engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, holds the tragic distinction of being the only person officially recognized as surviving both atomic bombings. He was in Hiroshima on business when Little Boy exploded, suffering severe burns but managing to return home to Nagasaki in time to experience Fat Man's detonation. His survival of both attacks seemed to embody the resilience and suffering of the Japanese people during those terrible days. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked humanity's entrance into the atomic age, forever changing international relations and military strategy. The weapons that ended World War II also began the Cold War, as nations raced to acquire nuclear arsenals that could destroy entire civilizations. The delicate balance of mutually assured destruction has preserved an uneasy peace for decades, but the specter of atomic warfare continues to haunt global politics. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientist who had led the Manhattan Project, later met with President Truman to express his concerns about nuclear proliferation. When Oppenheimer said he felt he had blood on his hands, Truman coldly replied that the decision to use the weapons was his alone. The president reportedly later told his Secretary of State that he never wanted to see that son of a bitch in his office again. The moral weight of atomic weapons had begun to fracture even those who created them. Today, the Peace Memorial Park in Hiroshima stands where the city's bustling commercial district once thrived. The atomic bomb dome, its skeletal remains preserved exactly as they stood after the bombing, serves as a haunting reminder of humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. Every year on the anniversary of the bombing, thousands gather to remember the victims and to pledge that such weapons will never again be used against human beings. The children who survived those August mornings in 1945 have spent their lives bearing witness to the true cost of atomic warfare. Their testimonies remind us that behind every statistic and strategic analysis are human faces, human dreams, and human suffering. They challenge us to remember that the weapons we create in the name of security can ultimately threaten the very existence of the civilization we seek to protect. The day America changed the world with atomic fire revealed both the ultimate power of human knowledge and the ultimate responsibility that comes with wielding such power. In those brilliant flashes over 2 Japanese cities, humanity glimpsed its own capacity for godlike creation and destruction. The choice of how to use that knowledge remains with us, a burden and a blessing that will define our species for generations to come.